Hello everyone, FPL Raptor here and welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. In today's video we have my early thoughts and transfer plans ahead of Game Week 4. I know we've got the international break, but it's never too early to plan ahead. If you do enjoy today's video, please do smash that like button, and if you are new around here, make sure to subscribe as well. But without further ado, let's jump into it. So guys, I'm obviously recording this directly after the Man United-Liverpool game, and emotions are therefore very high, not only because I am a Manchester United fan, but also what a ridiculous game week from start to finish. Haaland's hat-trick goes in, and all of a sudden, I'm preparing for this video and thinking I've just got to hang my head in shame and just accept that it's been a horrible game week and that I made a huge mistake going without Haaland. And whilst, by the way, I would still love to have Haaland in my team, and I might buy him for Game Week 4, I don't think it was a mistake going without. And that's very hindsighty because I was going into the final game of the game week thinking, why on earth did I go without Erling Haaland? And I think the overarching point here is that all strategies have worked well, dependent upon if you've got captaincy right, and also who the surrounding players are. I have seen some Haaland-only drafts that have done so incredibly well, people in like the top 100 in the world, especially if they triple captain. But I've also seen Salah-only drafts do very well. I myself have not done particularly well, but I'm almost in the top 1 million. And at this point of the season, that's not awful. And I know at this point, it probably does look like both drafts have done the best. And I've seen a lot of, again, both drafts that have done. But you might have missed out on the Palmer haul, the Son haul, the Saka haul. You might not have a Trent. You might not have had an Arsenal defender across the first two. So I don't think a specific structure or strategy is massively winning. I think all of them can work. And how wonderful is that? We have been calling for this for so long now in FPL that the template doesn't just emerge and that the template doesn't always win. And every strategy has worked, again, dependent upon who you own. So I'm obviously not very happy as a United fan, but delighted that Salah and Liverpool have bailed me out once again, because I was sat at 4.5 million before that game. And obviously Salah has brought me not only from a massive red arrow, but to a relatively big green one. So I finished Game Week 3 at the time of me recording on 82 points. Of course, bonus points can change, so that might go down slightly, but it's looking like Salah has matched Haaland's 17-pointer. And that now means that across the opening two game weeks, they're both on 41 points. So Haaland on 41, Salah on 41. But let's not make this too tiresome and only discuss the two of them. My team actually did very well outside of Salah, hence the 82 points. So Henderson, I believe, is the joint top-scoring goalkeeper in game... No, he's not, actually, sorry. That was before the Liverpool game. Alisson with his clean sheet will now be. But outside of Alisson, Henderson with a 4-pointer, the top-scoring goalkeeper in Game Week 3, because Liverpool were the only team to keep a clean sheet. And actually, Henderson was incredibly impressive. He prevented almost 2 expected goals on target. Basically, a brilliant performance from him. Palace were very disappointing defensively, though, and Chelsea were very impressive. So I'm still not very happy with Henderson. But do you know what? I'm taking 4 points as a win. It's not far off of a clean sheet. Robinson, also, again, Fulham, a little bit disappointing defensively, but he comes away with an assist. Robinson's looking so good going forward, and I'm delighted that I've got him. I think Arsenal probably would have kept a clean sheet against Brighton if not for the red card. And I'm not going to get into the red card in too much detail, but I'd love to know down below in the comments, do you think Declan Rice's red card was justified? I do think it was a little bit harsh, but by the letter of the law, I suppose, it is a red card. We just need a yellow card leading to the red card, but we just need some consistency from the referees, because at this moment, it feels like sometimes they'll book players for that and sometimes they won't. But Gabriel with a 2-pointer, I can't complain too much. Trent getting another clean sheet. I would say as of now, Liverpool look comfortably the best defence in the league. They almost look like what we saw from Arsenal at points last season. So if Liverpool can continue that, the likes of Van Dijk, Konate, Robertson, Trent will be excellent value. We'll stick on Liverpool. Salah was magnificent. I would say that Salah was significantly better against Manchester United than he was in the opening 2 games. His creativity is unrivaled. Honestly, on the wing, I don't think there are any wingers in the Premier League that have the same level of creativity. The only players that would match him are the likes of Kevin De Bruyne and Bruno Fernandes. But from that wide position, his creativity is magnificent. And listen, he loves playing against Manchester United. It's a game that he enjoys. And I don't even think a 17-pointer was lucky or unjustified. I think he had a brilliant performance. Jota was a little bit more anonymous and obviously didn't get an attacking return, but there were a few points if you watch the game where the ball almost popped him on the edge of the box. He almost had a chance. He also took a left shot, which only just brushed past the post. So overall, I'm still happy with Jota. And the thing that is pleasing me the most about Jota is the minutes, because he still is getting okay minutes. And when Darwin comes on, Darwin's been pretty rubbish in the minutes that he's played. So even with the Champions League starting between Game Week 4 and 5, Jota's minutes look pretty secure at the moment. So I can't expect a return from him every week, and I'm still happy to have him. The rest of the midfield is okay. Saka got an assist, but could have had so much more. He had over 1 XGI in that game. If you watch the Arsenal game, I think Saka deserved 2 or 3 returns there. And if not for some better finishing, he would have probably got that. So 6 points feels a little harsh. And if you probably captain Saka, you're feeling very hard done by. But it's still another return for Saka. And Saka is yet to blank over the opening 3 weeks. So another brilliant performance. Rodgers 2-pointer. I did say when I brought him in, and this might sound a bit strange because I brought him in this week for Nkunku, I'm not expecting that much from him. I brought him in because of the great fixtures, he's getting good minutes, and he's very cheap. If he wasn't cheap and he didn't have great fixtures, I wouldn't have brought Rodgers in. So it's a combination of everything. And whilst I would have loved a return from him this week, and I'm hoping if I start him next week, which we'll discuss a bit later, I'm hoping for something from him against Everton, I'm not necessarily expecting 10 plus points every week. And I think we have to match our expectations with what he is as an asset. He's unproven. The data isn't brilliant. And also, I think Villa haven't fully got going yet. So, listen, I want more from Rodgers, absolutely. But I'm not going to sit here and be really disappointed that a £5.1 million asset hasn't got me loads of points. Now, the other player blanking that I am very frustrated by is Muniz, because Muniz continues to get chances. He missed another big chance, and it's so frustrating because the likes of João Pedro and Wood are continuing to get returns. They're both on 2 returns now over the opening 3, and Muniz continues to blank. So that is a player that's frustrating because he's at least getting those chances, but he's just not finishing them. So I want more from Muniz. I expect more from him. And he is a player that if he continues to do that, he will unfortunately have to leave the team because there's only so long a player can continue to get chances and not take them. 2 players that did deliver this week is Eze and Isak. And I'm so glad because obviously the comments have been, are you really going to die on that Eze hill? And also Isak, you're being too patient with him. He's not been good over the opening 2. And I will just know, I don't think Isak was particularly good this week either. But it does go to show that often doing nothing and being a little bit patient with players that you know are eventually going to get chances and are playing for teams that will create them is probably worth doing. And I did say Eze and Isak, their minutes are so good. They're both on penalties. They're both so talismanic. They will get the chances. And it is funny because it's probably, Isak wasn't good, particularly in this game. I watched the entire thing and I think he could have done a lot more. And Eze, it was arguably his least impressive performance, but they both returned. And it strikes this debate. I think the most important thing in FPL is timing. And I think that is comfortably the most important thing because all of the players in these teams will score at different points in the season, but it's about owning them at the right point. And that then comes the question, like, when you own a player, how long do you give them before you remove them? I've got Muniz in my team. He continues to miss big chances. I'm sure that the week I remove him, he'll score 3 of them, and I'll be like, I've removed him 1 week too early. But then if he doesn't do that and you keep him 1 week too long, you feel like you're being too stubborn. So it's incredibly difficult. And this is the fun thing about FPL. I mean, fun is one adjective you could use, but it's trying to work out when to own the assets at the right time. And I am glad that the patience has paid off with Eze and Isak. And it's now up to me for players like Muniz to decide how patient to be with them. But overall, that gave me 82 points. I did have Pedro Porro on the bench. I count myself quite lucky that Porro didn't get anything. He's so attacking. And moving forward, I really don't want to bench Porro if I can get away with it because he's essentially playing as an attacking midfielder at points for Spurs. He had the most shots in that game, by the way, out of all players. So glad that he didn't get a haul this week, but moving forward, I'd like to keep him. And I'd arguably like to play him even against Arsenal in Gameweek 4, which we'll discuss. But overall, yeah, I did not expect to be sat here after Haaland's hat-trick with a green arrow. But yes, I would like to own Haaland. And I still think when you stare at this team, doesn't matter how good Salah is, Haaland is still a massive omission. And I can get him relatively easy. But there are also other omissions like Palmer and also like Brighton assets. So I need to work out what I want to do. But let's take a look at my team for Game Week 4, discuss it in its entirety, and then also look at my possible transfer plans and my watch list as well. So moving on to my team for Game Week 4 and a very early look. Again, we do have an international break, so I urge you not to make really early transfers. Even if a player you want is going up in price, the international break is not the time to move really early. So even if all of the players that I want to move for, which it looks like they could be, are going up in price tonight, I will not be making early moves. I won't be moving for at least the next 10 days or so. So that would be my advice to you. If you are going to be priced out and you are absolutely desperate to make a move of some kind, you might want to take the risk. But for me, the international break is not the one to do it because you just don't know what will happen over that spell. You could have 2 or 3 injuries that mean that you would have moved in another way. Or the player that you bring in, if they're on international duty, could get injured themselves. So for me, it's not worth it. But anyway, here's a very early look. What do I love about my team? Not much. No, I do. I've got 1 free transfer, so that isn't great. That is a massive issue for me that a lot of people are sat there with like 3 free transfers or 2. And as a result, to redistribute funds and to go out and get Salah, Haaland, Palmer, it's a lot easier. However, I do have 3.5 in the bank, 3.5 million. So that is a massive advantage for me that whilst I don't have the second free transfer, because I do have that money in the bank, it is a lot easier for me to go out and get a Palmer, go out and get a Haaland potentially. which I'm very happy with. And in all honesty, if I look at my team, I'm very happy with most of them. Triple Liverpool looks brilliant right now. I would say most people would ideally like to have 3 Liverpool, and I still think I have the 3 best with Trent, Salah and Jota. You could definitely make an argument that Robertson is worth having, potentially instead of Jota, but I'm happy with Jota, and I wouldn't say that it's worth, again, redistributing the funds to move from a Jota to a Robertson. So overall, the 3 of them are fantastic, and I think that Salah is equally as good as Haaland this week for captaincy. If I had both, there's definitely part of me that thinks I would probably captain Haaland against Brentford, but I wouldn't say that Haaland's fixture is a standout. They're both playing at home. Both Brentford and Forest are defences that aren't terrible if you look at the underlying data, but Salah feels like an okay captaincy option for Game Week 4. So that I'm very happy with. Where else? I mean, Crystal Palace, they've not been very good, but they've got Leicester at home this week. So I'm absolutely okay with both Henderson and Eze. They don't feel like transfers out, or at least they don't feel like they need to be removed. If I was on a wild card, would I have Henderson? Absolutely not. Would I have Eze? I might do. But again, right now as a priority, they don't need to be removed for me right now. My double Fulham, I'm a little bit more hesitant to say I'm happy with them because overall I think Fulham have been disappointing for me. Not just from an FPL perspective, but I just expected slightly better performances. And I don't think I've been overly impressed in any of the games. They made Manchester United look good in Game Week 1. And we have now seen across 2 games that they're not a particularly impressive side. I think against Ipswich had so many chances. I don't necessarily think they dominated that game. So having West Ham at home isn't a bad fixture. And I like that it's at Craven Cottage. But starting both Robinson and Muniz, in an ideal world, that wouldn't be what I would be doing. Robinson I don't have a huge issue with because he's been very attacking. And it's a home game. Muniz as well, though. If I look at him in isolation, he's getting the chances. His minutes are still around 75 to 80 most games. The worry for me with Muniz is if Raul Jimenez starts to come on a little bit earlier, and or if Raul Jimenez gets a start ahead of him, then of course at that stage Muniz is no longer an option. But do I feel like I can give Muniz at least 1 more week? Potentially. Right now, he doesn't feel like a major issue. I feel like I have other things in my team that I would like to sort instead. Rodgers. Not a player that I desperately want to start every week, but nothing's changed. He's still got okay data. He's still playing a very attacking role. His minutes are still good. And Everton, their capitulation at the end of that Bournemouth game, I'm okay starting Rodgers against Everton at home this week. The other 3 players I've got are obviously Gabriel, Saka, Isak. Gabriel, I'm not going to transfer out. There is part of me that just wants to play Pedro Porro ahead of him because he's more attacking, and I kind of feel like both teams could score. And in that case, why would I not just start Pedro Porro? But then Arsenal do just come into games like this and randomly get clean sheets, and they are still very good defensively. So at the moment, I've got Gabriel in ahead. I don't need to make that decision now, but I don't also feel the need to transfer out Gabriel or Pedro Porro at the moment. Saka and Isak, I don't have issues with them as players. I would be absolutely fine keeping Saka and keeping Isak. But when I look at the players that I want to bring in, Erling Haaland, Cole Palmer, to get these players, unfortunately, Saka and Isak are the 2 to be sacrificed because no one else in my team is expensive enough other than Salah and maybe to some extent Jota, but I'm not going to be selling them because Liverpool look unbelievable. So if I want to go and get a Palmer or if I want to go and get a Haaland, it is Isak and Saka that have to be sacrificed. Now, I hate that because they're both so good for minutes. They'll get 90 minutes pretty much every week. They're both talismanic. If their teams score, you expect them to be involved. And they're both on penalties. And Saka's even on some set pieces. So whilst the fixtures aren't perfect, especially for Saka, and whilst Isak largely has been quite disappointing, it doesn't feel nice selling them, especially when they've both just got attacking returns in Game Week 3. So I don't know how to feel about it because it's that decision of, yes, there are these players that I would like more, but is it worth me going, removing them, potentially taking a hit to remove 2 fantastic assets? Or could I make a transfer instead, which allows me to keep them and maybe target some of the weaker areas of my team? And if I look overall what's weak with my team, apart from Henderson in goal, who I'm happy having this week, I would say the only weak spot of my team is obviously no Haaland, but also having no 8th attacker. So at the moment, I've got Cannon on my bench. Obviously, he's no longer in the league. So that means I have no rotation. It means I have no backup. If there's a week when I don't want to play someone like a Rodgers or a Muniz, I don't have that 8th option. And so when I've got 3.5 million in the bank, an upgrade of Cannon to any of the really decent, cheap forwards could be a really good move for me, and it will allow me to hold on to the likes of Saka and Isak. So that is in the back of my mind. Could I bet against those that are selling Saka and selling Isak this week? Because so many people will go out there and do Saka to Salah or Saka to Palmer. Could I see Saka matching them against Spurs? Absolutely, I could. So there is a temptation for me to keep one or both of those and maybe do the Cannon move instead. But that is kind of the team overall. Currently rated at 94% according to Fantasy Football Hub. Still a decent rating. You can still get a free team rating. And as of right now, me recording this, there is still 50% off, but it's not going to last much longer over at Fantasy Football Hub. So you can check that out in the link down below. Let me now move on to the next section, which is my current transfer possibilities, because I think I have 4 at the moment, and I would love your help with it down below in the comments. What do you think I should do with my team? So guys, I started to allude to some of these possible transfers in the previous section, but as of right now, and to timestamp that is Sunday the 1st of September at the start of the international break. Here are my possible transfer options, but as I did say, no early transfers for me. So I will give myself plenty of time to think about this. I'll allow all of the emotion to die down and think about this logically, but I would love to know down below in the comments, what would you do with my team? Do I have to go and get Haaland, or do you prefer some of these other options? So on your screen, you can see here are my 4 current transfer possibilities. Options 1 and 2 require a -4 hit because I only have the 1 free transfer. And then options 3 and 4 would be for free. Obviously, I don't have to make any move. I could roll. But I did say at the start of the season, I remember pleading to you guys before the Game Week 1 deadline, don't allow me to be passive just because you can roll up to 5 free transfers and because other people will be doing so. Yeah, someone else might be sat there going into Game Week 5 with 4 free transfers, and I might have only the 1. But transfers mean nothing if that doesn't equate to points. And whilst it probably will for them eventually, I'm not scared to be taking hits. I'm not scared to be using my transfers. And therefore, I would be very surprised if I go into the Game Week 4 deadline without making at least 1 move. And obviously, by the way, international break injuries or issues might dictate the transfers for me. So, with all of that being said, again, let me know which of these options you prefer, or if you think there's something else you would do. Here is what I'm currently thinking. So option 1 is Haaland in. And this isn't a knee-jerk, by the way. I actually discussed this on my deadline stream, that this is a possibility for Game Week 4. So even if he didn't get a hat-trick, I was already contemplating the idea of bringing Haaland in. And I would say if you're watching this as a Haaland owner without Salah, you're probably doing the same. Lots of people do like Isak to João Pedro and Saka to Salah. That feels like a very straightforward transfer for a lot of people. So this isn't just me that's thinking I'd like Haaland and Salah. I think it's a lot. And the reason that I love this is I don't have to sacrifice Salah because I have that 3.5 in the bank. Because I've used transfers recently to free up the funds, I don't have to lose Salah. Because if it required me to lose Salah, and if you're watching this right now and you've got Salah and not Haaland, I would not sell Salah to buy Haaland. Because we've seen Salah's matching Haaland for 2.6 million cheaper. So it's worth having Salah instead of Haaland at the moment. So I wouldn't go out there and lose Salah. But if you can do something similar to this, where you're losing Saka and Isak instead, it's kind of tempting. So the move would be Saka to Matoma. This could be Minte if I think his minutes will be more secure. Let's see how many minutes everyone gets over the international break and who looks likely to start for Brighton. But basically, Saka to a Brighton midfielder and Isak to Haaland. I've got plenty of money for that. Even if there are price changes, I should still be fine. Yes, it's a hit. And as I said, yes, I am replacing 2 talisman on penalties. But I also feel like with Saka's upcoming fixtures and with Newcastle not quite clicking and not really getting Isak into the game, to take them out for 2 players with really good home fixtures against Ipswich and Brentford and to allow me to get Haaland in, it's very tempting. My only concern with this is I don't know that I would captain Haaland. I might do, but I also feel like Salah's a perfectly good captain. And then going into Game Week 5, Haaland's got Arsenal. And I'm absolutely fine not owning Salah against Arsenal. And to be honest, after that, he's then got Newcastle. And I'm not saying for a second Newcastle are a good defence because we know they're not. But do I feel like I could continue to back against Haaland for Brentford, Arsenal, Newcastle? I kind of do. That is a little bit driven by the fact that Salah's just saved me with not a hat-trick, but a 17-pointer. But I almost feel like if Haaland had gone and got 1 goal or 2 rather than another 17, would I be so desperate to go and get him? But he has done that. And he scored 7 goals in 3 games. And there is something to be said for a man that has just got back-to-back hat-tricks and just looks unbelievable. Like, he's smiling, he's smirking. You know when a player's barely celebrating that you're in trouble as a non-owner? Like, he doesn't even celebrate when he scores. Now it's just this little smirk on his face. So I want Haaland. It's not enjoyable going into a game week without Haaland. It's probably the same for you. You don't own Salah. We want these big players in our teams. And the fact that they have both scored 41 points each across the opening 3, it kind of feels like if you've got the money and ability to get both of them, you probably should. So at the moment, option 1 is the most likely for me. I want to have Haaland in my team. But I don't want to take it here. And there are other players that I'd like instead. So option 2 is another hit. But it's going out and getting 2 other players that are both on pens and I'd also really like in my team, which is Palmer and João Pedro. So sadly, in a lot of these, Saka is the player that has to leave. So Saka to Palmer is the first transfer. And then the second would be Cannon to João Pedro. That would give me the 8 attackers that I want. It would give me Palmer and João Pedro, who are 2 players I also want. But it would also give me a bit of a benching headache. I would probably have to bench, if I look at my team, it would be Rodgers, who I've just brought in. And also, I don't mind starting. So whilst I look at this and say, yeah, I would love Palmer and I'd love João Pedro, it also feels like a hit that isn't necessary. Do I need to go out and get both of these when I can just potentially just play all of my players instead? I don't need the 8th attacker this week for a hit. But then again, Palmer and João Pedro I would love for Game Week 4, so it's difficult. Options 3 and 4 is basically option 2, but split, right? So you only make one of the transfers. So option 3 would just be Saka to Palmer in my team, and would just allow me to have Palmer rather than Saka, who, regardless of what happened in Game Week 3, I always felt like from 4, 5, 6 onwards, I probably think for the next couple at least, Palmer is a slightly better option than Saka. And if it's for free, it doesn't feel as bad as if I had to do it for a hit. And then option 4 is the other half of it, which would just be Cannon to João Pedro. Now, if I just go back to my team then with all of those in mind, I think the non-emotional side of me says that probably the best transfer there is Cannon to João Pedro and bench one of Muniz or Rodgers. Because João Pedro, for me, just looks like a player that's minutes are great, the penalties are there, everything. Like, Brighton are attacking well. He, even outside of goal-scoring opportunities, he looks brilliant. So I look at this and I think Cannon to João Pedro, from a non-emotional, objective perspective, if someone was to give me their team, that makes the most sense. But I also don't really enjoy going without Haaland at the moment with the way that he's playing. And I think if I can easily, and I say easily, it does require a hit, have both Salah and Haaland, why not do it? So whilst I quite like the idea of getting Cole Palmer in, I think at the moment, if I then go back to my transfer options, probably the most likely to at the moment is 1 or 4. I'd like a Brighton attacker, and I'd like Haaland. It's just whether I want to make that extra Haaland move. Because, without talking about this in too much detail, because anything could happen over the international break, whilst I do like option 1, I'd much prefer João Pedro to Matoma or Minte. Whilst I have no issue with the midfielders. And in general, midfielders are getting a lot more points than the forwards due to the extra point for a clean sheet and extra point for a goal. João Pedro is just a better asset for me to own at the moment, and it gives me that squad depth. So there we go. I'll leave it there. Let me know out of the 4 options which you like. Do you think I need to go out and get Haaland? I'm happy to admit when I'm wrong, by the way. Like, when I look at my team, I would be happy to sit here. If Salah had blanked and Haaland had smashed it once again, I would have been absolutely happy sitting here and just saying, do you know what? Hold my hands up. I'm going to go out and get Haaland. Salah maybe not looking as great, but the fact that Salah looks so good again, the fact that he's such a good captain, I don't think it's as clear-cut as saying you have to go get Haaland now. So there we go. So much emotional knee-jerking going on here. Let me know what you're doing. Let me know what you would do with my team, and let me know what your current plans are with your team. But try not to do too much. We have the international break ahead, and there's plenty of time to think about our transfers. So guys, there we have it. That is my Game Week 4 transfer plans video. Hopefully you did enjoy it. And if you did, please do smash that like button and make sure to subscribe as well. Hopefully you enjoy the international break. I don't think there'll be too many videos on the Raptor channel, but there will be an episode of FPL Therapy. So if you still want your FPL content fixed, make sure to check out FPL Therapy on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple. It's my new FPL podcast, and there'll be an episode of that coming very soon. But until next time, thank you very much. Bye-bye.